My name is Elena Webb. I'm 34 years old. Before everything broke, I thought betrayal would be loud. I thought it would come with shouting, with doors slamming hard enough to shake the walls, with a moment so obvious you could point at it later and say, "There." That's when it ended. I didn't know it could arrive quietly. I didn't know it could sit across from you at dinner, smile, and wait until you were already too far inside the story to escape it. I found out on a Tuesday morning in March. Not from my boyfriend, not from my sister, from a piece of paper. My lawyer slid it across the table like it weighed nothing, like it wasn't the kind of thing that rearranges your entire life in a single glance. My parents were sitting 3 feet away. That's the part that finished me. Not the affair, not the pregnancy, not even the DNA result printed in black and white. It was the way they looked at that paper and didn't look surprised. Let me back up. I own a contracting business my grandfather helped me start. I've been working since I was 15, not because I had to, but because I wanted to. Because my grandfather, Earl Webb, told me something when I was 12 that stayed with me. A person who builds things owns things, and a person who owns things cannot be moved unless she chooses to be. I didn't understand it then. I do now. My younger sister, Danielle, is 3 years younger than me. We grew up in the same house, same rules, same expectations, but after that, things split. I stayed. She drifted. Danielle never held on to anything long. Jobs, apartments, plans, they slid through her hands like water. Not cruel, not malicious, just frictionless. My parents called it her personality. Her free spirit. I called it something else. But I learned early that saying it out loud didn't change anything. So I didn't. My boyfriend was Marcus. We met when I was 26. Built something steady, thought out, intentional. I loved him the way you love someone after thinking about it, after deciding. Not a lightning strike, a conclusion. We tried for a baby for 2 years. It didn't happen easily. Tests, appointments. One loss at 11 weeks I still don't talk about because some things don't need witnesses. Then finally, October, 2 pink lines. Marcus cried. I held him. We sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes in complete silence because there was nothing that needed to be said. I thought that meant we had made it through the hardest part. I was wrong. Danielle moved back into my parents' house in January. 31 years old, lost her apartment again. Of course you can come home, my mother said. Of course. That house, 4 bedrooms, colonial style, was bought by my grandfather in 1987. Paid off. Solid. The kind of place that doesn't move. Danielle being there meant she was around more. Family dinners, Sundays, weeknights. Marcus started going over more often with me. Then, without me. I didn't think about it. He was my boyfriend. She was my sister. That combination is supposed to mean something. The first sign I missed was small. February. Marcus mentioned a movie he and Danielle watched together. At my parents' house. My mom hadn't been there that day. Doctor's appointment. Just the 2 of them. He said it casually. I filed it away and kept moving. The second sign, Danielle started asking about the baby. Not casually, not politely. Specifically, what names are you thinking? When exactly is the due date? Did you already have the ultrasound? More than curiosity. Interest. I told myself it was growth. That she was finally caring about something outside herself. It wasn't growth. The third sign, I didn't miss it. I just didn't understand it yet. March 4th, Tuesday. I came home early. Job site flooded. Sent everyone home. 2 p.m. instead of 6. Marcus wasn't there. His car was gone. I texted him. He said he was at the pharmacy. I went upstairs to change. His phone was on the nightstand. He'd forgotten it. I wasn't looking for anything. I just reached for my charger. The screen lit up. A message preview. Danielle's name. The text cut off, but I could read enough. I can't keep doing this. The baby is... I stopped breathing. Not metaphorically. Actually. My body just paused. I sat down on the edge of the bed and waited. 40 minutes later, Marcus walked in. He saw me. Saw the phone. And I will give him this. He didn't lie. Not in that moment. He sat across from me, hands shaking just enough to notice, and said it started in December, 1 month after the positive test, while I was working, while I was building something I thought was ours. He didn't try to explain it. I didn't let him. Don't explain, I said. Just tell me what's true. So he did. December, January, February. Every afternoon, I thought he was resting. He was at my parents' house, with my sister, in the same house where my grandfather used to drink his morning coffee. I asked the only question that mattered. Is the baby mine? He hesitated, and that hesitation told me everything before he even spoke. I don't know, he said. I nodded once. Then you're going to find out, he cried. I didn't. I picked up my phone and called my lawyer. His name was Christopher Anand, best real estate and family law attorney in the county. He had handled contracts for my business, one property dispute, and now this. I told him what I needed. He said, "Come in tomorrow." I said, "Today?" There was a pause on the line, paper moving, a door shutting somewhere in the background. Then he said very calmly, "All right, today." That same afternoon, I also called my doctor and arranged a non-invasive prenatal paternity test. Safe for the baby. 7 to 10 business days for results. 7 to 10 business days. It sounded clinical, manageable, like a shipment estimate, like something with a range and a procedure and a tracking number. In reality, it was 8 days of living in a house that no longer felt like mine. 8 days of silence with texture. 8 days of waking up beside betrayal and pretending my body did not register the shape of it. 8 days of leaving for work before sunrise, reviewing invoices, walking job sites, answering calls from suppliers, discussing permits, signing off on lumber orders, and then coming home to a man I no longer recognized standing in my kitchen, asking if I wanted pasta or takeout as if language itself had not become obscene. Marcus tried at first to talk. He followed me once into the laundry room and said, "Elena, please, I know how this looks." I turned and looked at him so slowly he stopped speaking before I said a word. Then I said, "There is no version of this that looks better." He pressed the heel of his hand to his mouth, nodded, walked away. After that, he mostly stopped trying. We moved around each other like strangers trapped by weather. I slept on the far side of the bed the first 2 nights, then moved into the guest room because I couldn't stand the sound of him breathing. It felt too ordinary, too entitled. There is something uniquely violent about someone sleeping peacefully, while your entire understanding of your life is decomposing in the next room. By day 4, the house had become a museum of wrongness. His coffee mug still beside the sink, my prenatal vitamins on the counter, the tiny pair of neutral-colored baby socks we had bought on impulse still folded inside the nursery drawer. I kept functioning. That was the part that scared me. I still answered emails, still reviewed estimates, still signed off on payroll, still remembered to call a client in Livonia about a delay on kitchen cabinets, still picked up milk on the way home once, out of habit, and didn't realize what I'd done until I was standing in my kitchen, holding the carton and thinking, I am buying groceries inside the collapse of my own life. On day 6, I called my parents. I told myself I was doing the responsible thing, informing them before the results came in, giving them a chance to stand where parents are supposed to stand. I called after dinner. My mother answered on the second ring. "Elena, honey, is everything okay?" There are questions people ask because they don't know, and questions people ask because they are praying you don't know. I said, "Put Dad on speaker." Something shifted in the silence after that. A tiny, almost invisible movement, but I heard it. My father came on. "What's going on?" I didn't soften it for them. I told them Marcus confessed to an affair with Danielle. I told them it had been happening for months. I told them the timing overlapped with the pregnancy and that I was waiting on a paternity test. My mother went completely quiet. My father exhaled once and said, "Elena, these things are complicated." I remember staring at the wall when he said that. The guest room wall, off-white. One faint scuff mark near the baseboard. I remember it because some part of me needed to attach itself to a physical object, or I was going to come apart. I said, "Did you know?" My father did not answer. I said it again. "Did you know?" He said, "We didn't know for certain." The sentence landed harder than if he had shouted. Not because of what it said, because of what it admitted. I sat down on the edge of the bed, very carefully, like if I moved too fast, I might crack straight through the floor. "What does that mean?" My mother finally spoke. Her voice was thin. "We thought something might be wrong." Might be wrong. "Elena." "No." My voice came out flat. "No, Mom, don't do that. Don't use soft words. Tell me exactly what you mean." My father stepped back in, choosing his phrasing the way people do when they think tone can save them. We noticed they were spending time together. I laughed once, not because anything was funny, because there are moments when the body rejects reality so hard it chooses the wrong sound. "You noticed," I said. "For how long?" Silence. That silence told me the answer was not days, maybe not even weeks. My mother said, "We didn't want to accuse anyone without proof." I closed my eyes. In that instant, it wasn't Marcus or Danielle I saw. It was my mother setting out dinner plates. My father opening the back door for Danielle because her hands were full. Marcus at their kitchen table. My parents moving around them, watching, suspecting, choosing every single day to say nothing to me. I said, "You let this happen in your house." "No," my father said too fast. "That's not fair." "Fair?" My voice sharpened for the first time. "I was building a nursery for a baby that might not even be mine, and you're worried about fair?" My mother started crying. That did nothing for me. People think tears automatically mean innocence. They don't. Sometimes tears are just what guilt sounds like when it runs out of better disguises. My father said, "We were trying not to blow up your relationship without certainty." I stood up. I could feel my pulse in my hands. "You mean you were trying not to upset Danielle?" "That is not what I mean." "That is exactly what you mean," I said. "Because if this had been me doing something reckless, destructive, humiliating, if I had been the one sneaking around with somebody else's partner in your house, you would have had a family intervention staged before dessert." "Elena, you protected her," I said, "like always." My father's voice hardened. "Enough!" But I was already past the place where his tone mattered. No, not enough, not even close. Then, because I suddenly understood that there was nothing left worth hearing, I hung up. I stood in the middle of the guest room with my phone in my hand and listened to the silence after the call ended. It felt different now. Cleaner. Crueler. Like a room after the furniture has been removed, and all that's left are the dents in the carpet showing you where everything used to be. The results came on day 8. An email first, then a call from the doctor's office confirming the report had been uploaded. I opened the file at my kitchen table. Marcus was at work that morning, his first shift in 3 days, some half-hearted attempt at pretending normal life still existed. The PDF loaded slowly. I remember absurd details from that moment. The hum of the refrigerator, the sunlight on the edge of the table, my coffee going cold beside my hand, the faint tapping of tree branches against the back window. Then the line. Probability of maternity/paternity relationship. Elena Webb, 0.00%. I read it twice, then a third time, not because I didn't understand it, because sometimes your eyes keep checking a wound as if repetition might make it less true. 0. Not close, not uncertain, not complicated. 0. I did not cry. I forwarded the report to Christopher. Then I called him. He answered immediately, as if he had been expecting the call. "I have it," he said. I looked down at the report again. "My parents knew," I said. He was quiet for half a second. "Can you prove they knew?" "Not directly." "Can you prove they suspected and failed to warn you while the conduct continued on their property?" "Yes." Another pause, papers turning. I could practically hear his mind aligning pieces. "Come in," he said, "today." I drove to his office in near-perfect traffic, which felt offensive somehow. The roads were clear. The sky was bright. People were ordering coffee, buying mulch, arguing at stoplights, living inside a normal Tuesday while I drove across town carrying proof that my family had been rotting behind my back for months. Christopher's conference room was cold in the way expensive offices always are. Too much glass. Too much polished wood. Too much order. He read the report in front of me anyway, though I knew he had already seen it. Then he looked up and said, "What outcome do you want?" Most people ask that question like it's emotional. He asked it like a blueprint. I appreciated that. I said, "I want everyone out of my life who helped this happen." He folded his hands. "That includes your parents." "Yes." He studied me for a moment, not judging, measuring. Then he said, "Tell me again about your grandfather's will." That was the first time in all those terrible days that I felt something steady move underneath the wreckage. Not comfort, not hope, recognition. My grandfather Earl had been dead since 2019. But suddenly, sitting in that conference room with the DNA report between us and my family's silence still burning in my ears, I could hear his voice as clearly as if he were standing behind me. "Own things. Read carefully. Pay attention." I told Christopher about the clause, about the family house in Dearborn Heights, about the condition attached to its inheritance. As I spoke, his expression changed. Not dramatically, just enough, like a lock turning. By the time I finished, he leaned back in his chair and said, "Then we may have a mechanism." I looked at him. He looked at me. And for the first time since that message lit up on Marcus's phone, I stopped feeling like the person everything was happening to. I started feeling like the person who was about to decide what happened next. Christopher asked me not to tell my parents what the meeting was about. I called them that afternoon. I said, "We need to talk as a family. I want my lawyer present." My father assumed it was about damage control, about grief, about what moving forward together might look like. He said, "All right, when?" "Tuesday morning." My mother asked, "Is Danielle coming?" I let that question sit between us for a beat too long. "No," I said, "this one is for you." After I hung up, I sat in my car outside Christopher's office and watched people cross the parking lot carrying lunch bags and folders and dry cleaning. Normal Tuesday things. My life was now divided into before the envelope and after the envelope. And next Tuesday, in a glass conference room with my lawyer beside me and the truth laid out in black and white, my parents were going to learn that silence has a cost. The meeting was set for Tuesday morning. Christopher told me to arrive early. I got there at 8:15. Sat in the same chair as the day before, hands folded on the table, posture straight, breathing steady. Not because I felt steady, but because I understood something now. Control is not a feeling, it's a decision. Christopher entered a few minutes later with a folder already in his hands. Everything is filed, he said. I nodded once. Filed. Not prepared. Not pending. Done. At 9:02, my parents walked in. My mother first, eyes already red like she hadn't slept. My father behind her, jaw set, shoulders squared. Carrying himself like this was a conversation he could manage. He gave Christopher a polite nod. Counselor. Christopher returned it. Mr. Webb. They sat across from me. 3 feet. The same distance it had been when my entire life ended in that envelope. My father looked at me, searching my face for something familiar, something softer. Elena, he said, we've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened. We want to figure out how to move forward as a family. I didn't respond. Not because I didn't hear him, because there was nothing in that sentence that deserved an answer. Christopher slid the first document across the table. The DNA report. My mother reached for it first. Her hand shook just enough to make the paper whisper as she lifted it. My father leaned in. They read. I watched their faces carefully. Not for grief, not for regret. For surprise. I didn't find it. What I found instead was recognition. The quiet, terrible look of people seeing confirmed what they already believed. My father's jaw tightened. My mother covered her mouth. But neither of them said, how is this possible? Neither of them asked a single question. That was the moment everything inside me went still. You knew, I said. My mother shook her head immediately. We weren't sure. You suspected, I cut in. For weeks, maybe months. And you said nothing. Elena, my father started. No. My voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. You let it happen. In your house. That's not fair, my mother said again, like fairness was still a currency we were dealing in. I leaned back in my chair. I was working 60-hour weeks, I said. I was building a nursery. I was planning a future. And every afternoon I thought Marcus was resting. He was with Danielle, in your house. My father's voice hardened. Your sister? I am not talking about Danielle right now. The words landed sharp enough to stop him. I am talking about you, I said. You had one responsibility. You see something happening to your daughter. You tell her. You didn't. My father looked at me like I had just stepped outside the script he expected. We didn't have proof. You had enough, I said. Enough to pick up the phone. Enough to say, Elena, something isn't right. You chose not to. Silence settled across the table. Thick, heavy, final. Then I nodded once toward Christopher. He understood immediately. He opened the second folder. My client's grandfather, Earl Webb, he began, passed in 2019 and left the property located in Dearborn Heights to his son, Mr. Robert Webb, under a conditional inheritance clause. My father frowned. What does that have to do with... Christopher continued, voice even. The clause stipulates that if the primary inheritor engages in conduct that creates legal liability on the property or causes demonstrable harm to another direct blood heir of Earl Webb, ownership transfers immediately and in full to the injured party upon written request. My mother blinked. What? I watched my father's expression shift. Confusion first, then understanding, then something close to fear. Christopher slid the second document across the table. Transfer of ownership, he said. Filed with the county this morning at 9:03 a.m. My father didn't touch it at first. He just stared at it. Then slowly, like his hand weighed more than it should, he picked it up. His eyes moved across the page. Stopped. Went back. Read it again. Then he looked at me. You can't do this. Christopher spoke before I could. It's already done. The room went very quiet. My mother shook her head, tears spilling over now. Elena, this is our home. I met her eyes. It was Granddad's home, I said. He left it to Dad, with conditions. My father stood up abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. This is because you're angry, he said. You're not thinking clearly. Your relationship is falling apart and you're taking it out on your family. I didn't move. Sit down, I said. He didn't. So I leaned forward slightly and repeated it. Sit down. Something in my tone must have reached him, because after a second, he did. I built a nursery, I said, for a baby that isn't mine. I assembled the crib. I painted the walls. I drove to 3 different stores to find the exact mobile Marcus wanted. My voice stayed level. I did all of that in good faith, because I trusted my partner and I trusted my family. I let that word sit there. Family. Both of those were mistakes I will not make again. My mother was crying openly now. My father said nothing. Christopher folded his hands neatly on the table. My client is granting a 30-day period for vacating the property, he said. Formal notice will be delivered today. Any items remaining after that period will be considered abandoned. My mother's head snapped up. 30 days? Yes. My father looked at me like he was trying to find the daughter he raised somewhere behind my face. Elena, please. I stood up. You had months to say that, I said. You didn't. I turned to Christopher. Send the notice. Then I walked out. Danielle called me that night. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. On the third call, she left a message. Elena, I know you're angry, but Marcus and I deleted it before she finished. I don't need the rest of that sentence. Whatever they are to each other now has nothing to do with me. I filed a no-contact order the next morning. Danielle, Marcus, both. They violated it once. Danielle showed up at one of my job sites, standing near the fence, like she had every right to be there. My foreman called me immediately. I called Christopher. Christopher called Danielle. I don't know exactly what he said, but I know there was no second attempt. Marcus moved out on March 22nd. I wasn't there. I stayed in a hotel for 2 nights. When I came back, the house looked exactly the same and completely different. The furniture hadn't moved. The kitchen was clean. The air even smelled the same, but the absence of him was louder than anything he had ever said. I walked past the nursery, stopped, stood in the doorway. The crib was still there. The walls still that soft gray-green color. The mobile hanging perfectly centered, exactly the way I had measured it. I stood there for a long time. Then I closed the door. Not forever. Just not yet. The divorce was straightforward. Christopher handled everything. Marcus didn't contest it. There was nothing to contest. The house was mine. The business was mine. And the prenup, something Marcus had signed years ago without reading closely enough, left him with nothing to bargain with. Danielle moved in with him. 2-bedroom apartment. Starting over. Together. The way they chose to begin. My parents left the house in Dearborn Heights on April 9th. 29 days. 1 day before the deadline. I didn't go to watch. Not because I'm cruel. Because I didn't need to see it. Christopher called me that afternoon. The keys are at my office, he said. I drove there that evening. Picked them up. Cold metal. Simple weight. Then I got back in my car and drove toward a house that no longer belonged to the people who raised me. And, for the first time in my life, belonged to me. I sat in the driveway for a while before going in. The house looked exactly the same. Brick front. 2 oak trees framing the yard. The porch light my grandfather installed in 1991, still hanging slightly crooked, still working, because he had installed it to last. My father never replaced it. He never had to. That was the thing about this house. It didn't demand much, just attention. And attention was something my grandfather understood better than anyone I've ever known. I stepped out of the car. The gravel shifted under my shoes the same way it had when I was 8 years old, running up to the front door on Sunday mornings. Back then, my grandfather would open it before I even knocked. He always heard the car. I unlocked the door, walked inside. 4 bedrooms, same layout, same quiet. But it felt different now, not empty. Reset. I moved through each room slowly. The kitchen where my grandmother used to make Sunday dinners. The living room where my parents sat pretending everything was fine while something was quietly breaking behind them. The hallway Danielle used to walk down without ever thinking about who she might be hurting. And then the basement. I went straight to the workbench. His workbench. The pegboard still hung above it, tools lined up in precise order. Level, square, chalk line, hammer. I reached up and took the level down. It felt the same in my hand. Solid, balanced, honest. This is how you know if something is true, he used to say. I held it there for a moment longer than necessary, then set it back exactly where it belonged. I moved in 3 weeks later, brought my tools, hung them beside his level next to mine, his square next to mine, his chalk line on the left peg, mine on the right. Not replacing. Continuing. The first weekend, I replaced the gutters. They had needed it for 2 years. My father kept saying he'd get to it. He never did. The second weekend, I rebuilt the back porch steps. The wood had started to rot, soft spots near the edges. You could feel it shift if you put your weight in the wrong place. I tore it out, reframed it. Pressure-treated lumber, anchored properly, measured twice. Level, solid. Right. The third weekend, I repainted the front door. Dark green. The exact same shade it had been when I was 7 years old. I stood back when I finished and looked at it. Same color. Same house. Different owner. The right owner. My father called me once. New number. I didn't answer. He called again 2 days later. I picked up. There was a pause on the line, then his voice. I hope you're satisfied. I leaned back against the kitchen counter, looking out at the yard. That's not the word I'd use. He exhaled sharply. Your grandfather would be ashamed of what you did. I let that sit for a moment. Then I said, Granddad wrote the clause. I followed it. Silence. If he didn't want it used, I continued, he wouldn't have written it. He was precise. Every word meant something. My father didn't respond. I'm not interested in arguing, I said, and I'm not interested in pretending this didn't happen. What are you interested in then? I looked down at my hands. Calloused, steady, building something that doesn't collapse when people stop telling the truth. He hung up. Danielle and Marcus are still together, living in a 2-bedroom apartment. The baby is due in August. I know because people talk. Small towns don't keep secrets. They just delay them. I don't follow them. I don't check. Information arrives on its own. And when it does, it lands without weight. I don't wish them harm. I don't wish them anything. They chose each other in the worst possible way. Now they get to build something from that. I've seen Danielle try to build things before. I leave it there. The nursery in my old house is still intact. I haven't gone back to change it. Not yet. But I think about it sometimes. Not with sadness. With clarity. It took 2 weekends to build. First weekend, layout, measurements, placement, where the crib would go, where the dresser would sit, how the light moved through the room in the afternoon. Second weekend, paint. 2 coats. Color called Harbor Mist. Soft gray-green, calm, controlled. The kind of color that doesn't demand attention. Marcus chose it. I said it looked good. It did. Then the crib. 47 pieces. Every bolt tightened twice. Because when you build something for a child, you don't leave room for failure. Then the mobile. 3 stores. $62. Wooden animals. No plastic. Tested the rotation. Perfect. I stood in that room when it was done and felt something I thought was certainty. Like I had built something that was supposed to exist. Like I had done everything right. The child that room was built for is not mine. The man who is that child's father never picked up a paintbrush, never tightened a bolt, never drove across town looking for a specific piece of wood carved into small animals. He just showed up in my parents' house on the days I was working, and they watched and said nothing. I don't see that room as a loss anymore. I see it as a measurement, a precise physical record of what I gave in good faith while everyone around me chose silence. 47 bolts, 2 coats of Harbor Mist, $62. That's what trust looked like when it was real. I'm going to repaint it. Eventually. Different color, different purpose. I'm thinking a home office. Clean lines, good light, a desk big enough to spread out plans without clearing space first. I'll do it when I'm ready. Not yet, but soon. A few weeks ago, I was working on the back fence. 2 posts had rotted out. Saturday morning, coffee on the porch railing, quiet neighborhood. Mr. Beaumont from next door came out, 78. Lived there longer than I've been alive. Used to play cards with my grandfather. He leaned on the fence and watched me for a while. Then he said, "You're doing it the way Earl did. Depth first. Concrete before you level." I didn't look up. That's how he taught me. He nodded slowly. "He talked about you," he said. "Last few years. Said you were the one who was going to do something with this place." I set the post. Checked alignment. Concrete mix. Pour. Adjust. Level. Perfect. I said, "I think he knew." Mr. Beaumont smiled faintly, then went back inside. My grandfather once told his attorney something. I didn't hear it at the time, but I heard it later. He has 2 granddaughters, he said. One listens, one doesn't. I want the one who listens to have a mechanism. A mechanism. A door built into a legal document. Waiting for the right person to open it. I opened it. The nursery door is still closed. I'll open it when I'm ready. I'm not ready yet, but I will be, because now I have a house with a solid foundation. The gutters drain properly. The porch steps don't shift. The front door is the right color. Everything else gets built from here, one piece at a time. The right way, the way he taught me. And the one thing nobody asks, what it's like to build a nursery for a child that isn't yours. I'll tell you, it looks perfect. Until the moment you realize